four of the biggest free agents in baseball are still unsigned.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that I have the utmost respect for Scott Boras. He knows what he's doing. But you wonder whether or not he has overplayed his hand here. Because the guys that are remaining that he controls all have warts. They're not perfect players. Blake Snell has 2 Cy Young awards. Check out what he's done between the 2 Cy Young awards. Cody Bellinger had a really good year for the Cubs. Check out what he did the previous 2 years after winning the MVP for the Dodgers. Jordan Montgomery has always been a nice starter. He was otherworldly in the postseason last year. I'd say of all of the 4, he probably has the least amount of warts. I don't know if he has any warts, but is he a dominant guy who's going to command top dollar? And then Matt Chapman, who's an outstanding third baseman, had a great April last year, but just didn't do much after that. And if you look at his numbers, he doesn't really do that much offensively anymore. So you could wait and demand whatever you want. The Yankees are the only team, as far as I know, that made an offer for Blake Snell. They are from 6 years. They are from 5 years. No, it was 6 years, $150 million. He wanted 9 years. He countered with 9 years, $270. Listen, Blake Snell's a good pitcher. Not worth 9 years, $30 million a year. The Yankees are out of the Blake Snell business. So that 6 years, $150, which is under $30 million a year, about $28 a year, it's not there anymore. Who's paying it? Who's paying it? Did you overplay your hand? And there's been a report out there, and Don mentioned it yesterday. Yankees might still be in on Bellinger. Well, tell me how. Tell me how they're still in on Bellinger. Once they made the Verdugo trade, how are they in on Bellinger? Their outfield is Aaron Judge in center, Soto's in right, Verdugo is in left, and Trent Grisham is your fourth outfielder. How are they in on Bellinger? Your first baseman is Anthony Rizzo. Why would you be paying $25 to $30 million a year on a guy that has no position? So I'm going to be very intrigued to see how this plays out. Who's giving Blake Snell that money? Who? And it also makes the Yankees getting Marcus Stroman look pretty smart. They grabbed him at $18.5 million for 2 years. That's a bargain. When Blake Snell wants $30 million a year, $270 for 9 years for Blake Snell. Now, there are certain free agents out there that are no-brainers. Garrett Cole's a no-brainer. He checks every box. So when he wanted 9 years and all that money, the Yankees gave it to him. And other teams would have given it to him. That's a no-brainer. But to hold out for that kind of money for Blake Snell, when you look at his years between the Cy Youngs, where's it coming from? Who's giving that kind of money to Bellinger? Where, Don? I want to know where these guys end up, and I hope they all do great. But my goodness, you're putting flawed players out there, and you're charging Tiffany prices.
You just wonder, is that because they're Boras clients? Listen, he's asking for top dollar, but he's not going to be able to get it now because anybody that signs him, it's not going to be out of it might be out of desperation, but it's not going to be for the money that Boras wants at this point. What is he banking on that these teams are going to be just so panic-stricken?
I think he's banking somebody will get hurt in spring training.
But then if they don't, then what? I mean, we saw the same thing with Conforto, right?
Yep.
And he ended up sitting the entire year.
And got hurt, too.
Right, but I'm just saying is that somebody will get hurt. There'll be an opportunity, and what if the opportunity doesn't come? What if nobody gets hurt? Is your client, just to get the top dollar, willing to sit an entire year or months before they get an opportunity to play? I mean, and I don't know whether it's just being anti-Boras, that they want to try to bring his money down, they don't like him, whatever it is. But I would think at the end of the day, you want to try to have the best players on your team. But Scott's so good at what he does, Michael. What's his end game here? I don't see how this is going to work out.
I mean, most of the time, he comes out smelling like roses because I believe for what he does, he's a genius. He must have some idea where they're going to end up. I want to see the team that gives Blake Snell 9 years, $270. I want to see that team. I want to see how long that team is in existence as a viable option. You know, all the free agents lost a big player in the Padres who overpaid to an extent that they almost bankrupt their team. That team doesn't exist anymore. I mean, the perfect fit for Blake Snell or for Jordan Montgomery would be the Orioles. The Orioles need a number one starter. Blake Snell fits that.
Well, they're not going to dance for that money.
No. So you're out. If the Yankees aren't in, the Dodgers don't need any more pitching. I mean, the Cubs definitely need Bellinger. They're not biting on the price range.
Well, if I were Blake Snell's camp, wouldn't I try to do what happened with Cora in Minnesota? Sign a 1-year deal. And go ball out, win the Cy Young, and then hope that you'll be able to do it.
I don't think that's the play, though, Don, because he just did that. He just won the Cy Young. He can't be any hotter than he is right now. I think he's over asking. Why not take the 6 years, 150 from the Yankees?
He's over asking because, as you said, he doesn't give you a ton of innings. Now, if he goes out there and does it again, and maybe gives you a few more innings, and then does it at a level where the team's competing for a championship, then maybe he'd have a better chance. He'd make good money this year. So Boris is going to look like a genius if, God forbid, Cole gets hurt and the Yankees get desperate and decide to sign him for this year. But that's no way to do business, hoping somebody gets hurt in spring training. What if nobody gets hurt? Then your hot client coming off a Cy Young award is not going to play?
They always say in any business, hope is a really bad plan.
But he's smarter than that. But I'm just wondering if now teams have either wised up or post-COVID now are being a little bit more fiscally responsible.
Well,
now, the Yankees are one thing with Cole because there's not a lot of teams that could have danced as high as they did. The Yankees did because the Yankees were in a situation where they felt that this was an absolute need and they're a rich franchise. But you saw what happened with San Diego. Now their owner passes away. You saw what happened in Washington. Same thing. So some of these teams that were throwing a lot of money around now are paying the piper. So are teams beginning to wise up now? Are there fewer teams that can spend the money than, say, 5 years ago, 3 years ago?
Well, I think it's a bad storm for the free agents. The Dodgers spent their money, obviously, on Glasnow, Yamamoto, and Ohtani. And then they also brought in James Paxton for 11. So you assume they're done. The Mets are kind of in this nebulous state, Don. They don't seem like they want to go for the big fish at this point because they don't think they're going to be a World Series contending team. The Yankees have spent their money. They're over $300 million, so they're not in. So if those three teams are out, where are you getting people to bid it up? The Texas Rangers desperately want to sign Jordan Montgomery. They can't because they don't know what their television revenue is going to be because the regional sports network might not even be in existence. So that cost them like $80 million. So who's bidding on the Chicago White Sox are in a total rebuild. They're selling people off, so they're not buying anybody. Where is the big money coming from? Again, I'll always bet on Boris because his track record is pristine. But I can't figure out where the money's coming from. I can't figure it out.
The brilliance of Scott Boras is that he will be able to convince teams the bargain that this player is because of all the hidden analytics. I remember that book. Remember you showed me like the Johnny Damon binder,
yep.
Like all the things that he can do that you don't think about that go beyond the big three, batting average, home runs, and RBIs. But everybody's onto that now, Michael. They run their teams that way now. So I think they know exactly what they're getting from these free agents. It's just a matter of whether they have the money or not. And so I can't believe Scott Boras, as smart as he is, thinks there's money out there that isn't really out there. So is he waiting for somebody to blink? And he could sit there and prove that those franchises have the money, but if they're not willing to spend it, then what good is it the fact that they have it? He can prove that those guys have money in reserve and should use it on his free agent. But if they don't want to, they don't want to. They're not going to be guilted into it, Michael.
Right. The teams with a lot of money are out. They're done. And you had the Yankees right there. 6 years, 150 would have been a great landing spot for this guy, being the number 2 starter behind Cole and in front of Rodon. I mean, he could have enjoyed life here for 6 years, but you asked for 270 for a guy when he doesn't win the Cy Young. His numbers are somewhat pedestrian, and even when he wins the Cy Young, he gives you 5 1/3 innings each start. And you're asking 270 for 9? Again, Scott's smarter than me. I want to see it work out. I hope I live till opening day this year because I want to see how this plays out. I don't want to pass before it plays out. Is that fair?
Very fair. There should be other reasons for that, but that's a good one.
Of course. I mean, there's so many reasons, but that's just one. I've always said I don't want to pass it away in the middle of a season, of any season. Like the perfect time, I guess, to pass would be like right after the Super Bowl before spring training. But then you pass it away in the middle of a basketball season.
Yeah, but there's a middle of always.
I know. That's why it doesn't pay to die.
Well, nobody wants to. This always crossed my mind, too, as we go into the morbid part of the show.
I love this.
Day or night? I'd rather pass during the day.
Night for me.
Less scary.
Well, I think passing is scary even if it's in the daylight.
No, but I get that, but with the sun out, I don't know. There's a feeling of hope.
Then you think of Terry Jacks, Seasons in the Sun.
Right. Yeah. But that's part of it. The sun is positive. The nighttime, because what if we're going into dark? Then there's no transition.
That's exactly what you're doing, though. So it's kind of apropos.
Oh, really? So you've already, we don't want to give our political leanings, but...
No, I'm not saying... I'm just saying...
you don't believe in God.
I do. That's the way I'm betting. But I'm just saying that when you close your eyes, it goes to dark wherever you end up after that. But it is kind of like fade to black, right? Then hopefully you wake up in a beautiful place.
But to tell you,
don't know.
You're going towards the light, they say.
Well...
Yeah, so it's fade to white.
Yeah, but no. When the eyes close, it's dark. And then you'll start to go into the light.
So you're saying fade to black,
then light,
and then we go back up on
right. Like you're producing
dissolve.
it. Yeah.
You want to cross dissolve, go to black, and then cross dissolve back to white. Here we go. See the light.
Camera 1, swipe. Camera 2. I think we have Isola next. What do you call him, Peter?
Ice Francola.
Ice Francola. Or Frank Isola of the Yes Network. He has his own show in the morning. He's on PTI constantly and Around the Horn. He works more than me now. But he's good.
Very good looking man.
When I'm getting ready for a game, I have to be prepared. I have my lineup cards.